Hello, friends, and welcome to In the Know with Exonify, your 25-minute deep dive into the biggest topics impacting the workplace today. I'm JD. I'm the Chief Learning Architect at Exonify. And first things first, I'd like to wish a happy belated 4th of July to our viewers in the US, as well as a happy Canada Day to everyone up north, including many of my Exonify peers. On today's show, we're talking skill development, but we're not going to talk about how L&D can help the people we support build their skills. Instead, we're going to look inward and explore the skill requirements of L&D professionals in today's workplace. You know, the worst joke in L&D is that while L&D is all about learning and development, L&D people rarely focus on their own learning and development. So we're going to help solve that problem today. John Hinchliffe, the head of engagement at Jampan, is here to join me in a rousing game of agree to disagree. We're going to hash out the skills L&D professionals need to overcome common workplace challenges and deliver measurable business value. But before I challenge John to a literal head-to-head contest, and you'll see why that's funny in just a few minutes, I want to let you know about a very exciting conversation happening on our next episode. Hopefully, you're already in the know about Exonify's acquisition of Nudge, the top-rated communication and execution platform for deskless workers. If you didn't already check out the announcement, head over to exonify.com/nudge for the TLDR. Now, if you're a member of the Exonify community or the Nudge community, or someone who supports a frontline workforce, you might be wondering, what exactly are Exonify and Nudge up to? And how could it potentially benefit me and the people in my organization? Well, then you're going to want to tune in for our next episode in 2 weeks on July 20th, because Jordan Eckers, co-founder and chief operating officer of Nudge, is going to be here to talk about our shared vision for the not so distant future of the frontline employee experience. We're going to explore the changing needs of frontline workers and how digital tools like learning, communication, task management, and recognition can help you improve performance, boost engagement, decrease turnover, and get more done with less during challenging times. We still have plenty of work to do as we bring our teams together, but this is a chance to get some of your early Exonify plus Nudge questions answered. So register right now on LinkedIn and be sure to hold Wednesday, July 20th at 11:30 Eastern Time on your calendar. But now I'm very excited to welcome today's guest, John Hinchliffe. John is an internationally recognized multi-award-winning digital learning expert with over 15 years in the industry. He's head of engagement at Jampan, the global L&D services provider trusted by some of the biggest companies in the world. He's also the founder of the global learning and development community, has been named a top 30 trailblazing thought leader by elearningindustry.com, and won the Learning Give Back Silver Award at the LPI Learning Awards 2022 in recognition of his continued efforts to help others in the learning and development industry. And that's why I can't think of anyone better to speak with about the changing skill needs of L&D professionals. So John Hinchliffe, you're in the know with Exonify.
Wow, thank you very much for the intro, and thank you ever so much for having me. And it's just wonderful to be here.
My pleasure indeed. So I want to start our conversation with that last point from your bio, the recognition you received earlier this year from the LPI related to your work with the Global Learning and Development Community, or GLDC. So can you tell us a bit about the GLDC, what motivated you to kickstart the effort, and where does it stand today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so GLDC was spawned in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. So I was living in Dubai in a one-bedroom flat on my own, and we weren't allowed to go outside. And prior to that, I was organizing face-to-face meetups, which I loved, just getting to know people, getting to know their stories, and really just giving them best practice and things that help them out. Then we weren't allowed to go outside, and really I thought, well, how do we take this virtual? Now the world's going virtual. So I opened this up on my LinkedIn and just said, look, if anybody would like to see me at this time, I'll learn how to use Zoom and we'll get people chatting. And so it was really learning how to use Zoom. How long do we do breakout rooms? I started introducing a thing called a family photo, where we took a picture of everybody and people started to know about it and talk to other people. And then we were having, 100+ people on a Zoom at the same time. And I was having to turn people away because I found out Zoom has limits. So we did that, and it grew and it grew and it grew. Then it started to be twice weekly to support the people in Australasia and Europe. Then it grew a platform that I created called mygldc.com. And that has grown to over 1,000 members, just people being able to help and support each other in a fun and friendly environment. And then in this year, I decided to step backwards because I'm not the community. The community is the community. And so for me, it was really putting that in the hands of two incredible individuals, Linnea and Mariana, who have so much joy, passion, and are able to help that grow. Because I was a blocker, I'm just one person trying to do a job, trying to live a life, moving into a house. And it was really me recognizing that and just saying, look, how can this really grow? So I handed it through to them, and now they do so many incredible events. They have more things going on in the week, and I'm just so proud of them that they are helping that grow, and people are still having that love and support with the GLDC.
Okay, amazing effort. Speaking as a member of the professional community, thank you so much for, in a challenging time, finding new ways to bring people together to support one another in whatever ways people need support, both in the last couple of years as well as moving forward. So speaking of community support, let's talk about enabling L&D pros, because I already mentioned in the beginning of our show, the inability to focus on our own development is kind of one of the biggest professional ironies ever as L&D people. So why do you think it's so hard for L&D professionals to make professional development a priority for themselves?
I mean, goodness, it is just the most ironic thing. But I think it's for us, psychologically, we have a disconnect. When we think about when we're asked to create our own portfolio, if we were asked to create a project for somebody else, we can get it done. But when we think about, well, what's it supposed to entail? What's going to be in there? How am I going to create it? We have that psychological disconnect. And I think it's potentially that the vast majority of L&D people have come from environments where L&D has not been, really pushed on them. So they're really trying to help, and they're more givers than takers, really. And I think for us as L&D professionals, it's trying to get around that, support each other, and actually put in place practices that really move us forward and actually make it a priority for ourselves, because L&D is ever changing, and we need to evolve.
Absolutely. And great point around the giver and taker, the altruistic nature in a lot of cases of what we do in trying to help people do and be their best. But hopefully we're going to help people out today by diving into some of the skills that are most important for L&D pros in today's workplace. There are already lots of articles, there are podcasts or webinars talking about essential L&D skills. So I figured we'd come at this from a little bit of a different angle by playing a game of agree to disagree. So typically, if you've heard of this game before, you might know it as a game that two celebrities usually play sitting across a table from one another. But in this case, instead of like Chris Evans and Taika Waititi, you got two Johns, which I think better than the Avengers, what we got going on right here. So let's take a look at our game board. Here you can see we've got 4 options in our game. We can either strongly agree, just agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Our announcer is going to read a statement about L&D skill development. And then John, you and I have to quickly decide if we agree or disagree and to what extreme with that statement. So typically in the real show on YouTube, people slide a glass of water up and down the table to indicate their agreement. But since we're on different continents, we're going to be sliding our faces along this digital game board. And that is why this is a true head-to-head matchup. Hold for laughter.
And that's tumbleweed.
Anyway, so John and I, just for everyone out there, have not discussed the statements we're going to hear. So we have no idea what one another is going to say. So the debate might get, a little spicy as we go along the way. Let's see. John, are you ready to agree and or disagree?
I am indeed ready to agree or disagree.
All right. So remember, wait until the announcer finishes the statement. Then they're going to count down from 3. And as soon as the countdown's over, move your face as quickly as you can based on a gut reaction to that statement. Then we're going to spend a minute or 2 discussing why you made that decision to agree or disagree. And if you're joining us live on LinkedIn right now, be sure to play along. So in the chat, let us know when you hear each statement about skill development, do you agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree with that statement based on your experience? So let's kick things off. Let's give it a whirl with our first statement. Announcer, go ahead.
L&D professionals have clearly defined skill requirements. 3, 2, 1.
Ooh. Oh, all right. All right. It's not quite spicy to start because we both strongly disagreed. with that statement around clearly defined L&D skill requirements. John, why did you strongly disagree?
I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind is when we think about a learning experience designer, that varies so greatly depending on the organization, the individual you actually speak to, how broad that goes, how narrow that goes. Actually, in fact, instructional designers, how broad, how narrow that goes. So I think for us as a profession, also as like institutes, the actual definitions just, they're not really there.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. And I think, like you said, all you have to do is take 2 job descriptions from 2 different companies for a role that sounds by title to be the same thing and look at what they're looking for. And again, depending on the size of the organization, the resources you have, the expectations are all over the place. And the piece that I would add is we have so many different frameworks and models and different professional organizations saying that different things that are kind of similar but not are important. So I think the lack of centralization in terms of training and support in the industry hampers that consistent skill expectation. And like you mentioned a bit earlier, a lot of people come to this work accidentally, right? So we don't all feed through a pipeline like accountants, kind of all have to go through a certain training program, right? Get certain certifications to execute consistently based on a set of standards. L&D just doesn't have that. And that's why I think you see the skill requirements a bit all over the map.
Yep, absolutely. I think also when you kind of touch on that, think about mindset of industry, there's always historically been such a focus on output rather than positive impact. And I think that also plays its little part in those skills definitions.
Absolutely. All right. So we agreed to disagree so far. Let's check out our second statement and see if things get a little spicy. Get ready. Here we go. Announcer, our second statement, please.
Data skills should be the top priority for internal L&D development. 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
Oh, all right. All right. Here we go. Here's the spice that we promised. I strongly agree with data skills being a top priority. John, you disagreed. John, go first. Why did you disagree?
I love it how these disagreements are like, they're not going to be too spicy. It's not going to be like a rap battle in 8 Mile. But so I think data is a skill that needs to be focused on. I don't think it is the top skill. I think really for L&D, we need to be looking at, yes, data. I think marketing, I think copywriting, I think platform specialization, I think is so under discussed. But with technology being such a massive part of what we do in L&D, actually having that focus of how do you make a great learning experience with what you've got, add on to that content curation, project management. Yeah, those are my top skills. But JD, you strongly agree.
I agree with your entire list in terms of there's a robust skill set that, like we said in the first statement, we need to really codify what are these types of critical skills. And I'll lean heavily into things you said around how to effectively use technology, how to curate and not always have to build solutions, how to collaborate effectively with stakeholders, all top of list. I put data above them still, though, just because so much of our ability to move forward as a profession is rooted in our ability to measure better. So whether that be how we apply technology as it advances, the ability to take advantage of AI, machine learning, adaptive learning, the ability to get proactive instead of taking orders, the ability to quote unquote seat at the table moment, right? The ability to validate if we're having an impact. So it's less that everyone has to be a data scientist. That's not true at all. And some organizations may have the benefit of being able to have deep expertise in data on their teams, but some may not. But I think no matter what your job is in L&D, it's one of those consistent needs to be able to do that job through data so you can leverage data to ask better questions and make more strategic decisions. So I still think it's at the top of the mountain, especially because we've had such a hard time with measurement for the last forever number of years as an industry. Big list of skill requirements. Agree with everything you said. I still think data's at the top.
All right. All good.
All right. All right. The spice is here. It's just mild today, everybody.
This is a korma. If you were wanting a vindaloo, go elsewhere. This is more of a korma.
There you go. I don't know what that is, but that's okay. Let's check out statement number 3.
Conferences are a great way to build new L&D skills. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, all right. All right. So I disagreed with the statement about conferences and building L&D skills. You agreed. Give us your pitch. Why did you agree?
Okay, so I think, yes, conferences, the actual sessions very much mimic what you could do in your own spare time, where you could go webinars, podcasts, such and such. For me, it's the connections, it's the conversations within a conference, and it's also that sense of community, being able to just find out from somebody what a solution is that they actually happen to have integrated within something that they've done that is similar to yours, but also from you as a personal development, actually being inspired by people. What are other people doing that are in, same positions as you that you could further develop yourself? So I think for me, those are kind of the main things. And also, yeah, just being able to like take from that connections and also observe what's happening in the industry as a whole to then kind of give you an insight into what you need to upskill yourself in the future. But you disagree.
I agree with everything you said, but that's what made me disagree, because I don't think it's a skill development exercise. I think it's a discovery exercise and a connection exercise. So it's, how do I get exposure to understand where should I focus my continued development based on how other people are overcoming challenges similar to mine, right? How the industry is evolving and different, what trends are real and might deliver real impact versus which are just hype. I think all of that, conferences play a role in hashing that out. But the 2 to 3 days you spend on site, or maybe it's online over a couple of different days, right? The formats are all changing right now based on the changing nature of work. But I think that's where the process begins, but that's not where we should lean. So I think the challenge comes in where if an organization looks at sending people to a conference as their development opportunity for this year, that's where it's a problem. So that's why I disagree with it, but I completely agree with the kind of discovery and connection element of events.
Very good. And also we're getting some feedback from people in the chat as well. So yeah, a little bit of balance.
I enjoyed that we disagreed, but agreed. That's the dynamic of this game, everybody. You should play this with all of your home and family conversations will be much more harmonious because you find the middle ground in just a fun but light debate. So let's head into statement number 4, see if we can bump up the spice at all today.
L&D professionals should be more generalists and less specialists. 3, 2, 1.
All right. So you strongly agree with the need to be more generalist and specialist. I just agreed. So we're on the same side of the line. Why did you strongly agree?
I was going to go agree, but then the more I thought about it, I strongly agree. So I think, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and people come to me and say, I am a storyboard creator for healthcare software as a freelancer. That's my thing, but I'm not picking up much work. And it's so niche. And I know there's a number of people that love niches. That's cool. This is the point of these conversations. But for me, it's really, how do you look at the bigger learning and development picture? How can you, look at the different tools that you can utilize, the different platforms that you can utilize? When we think about, okay, let's think about software simulation. Yes, you could go down like an Articulate route, screen record. Also, maybe you could use like an electronic performance support system like WhatFix, WalkMe, whereby people are getting that in real time. Once again, that's building that skill set. Moving away from instructional design, pedagogy, those kinds of elements. What happens if you got really good at copywriting? There's all these different elements that organizations are starting to really develop and look at, such as, video editing. Let's say they went really big on user content, generated videos. Great. How can you then get that skill in just putting a front and a back end on it? So for me, generalists, that's really where I see you become a supermarket. That's it.
Gotcha. Again, I'm on the same page. I think it's the T, right? Where be wide with a set of skills, but deep in the right places based on what you're interested in doing, the value you want to bring to an organization, and the type of organization you want to work with, right? Because there's a difference in working in a company that has 400,000 people and you're part of a 400-member L&D function where you can go a little bit deeper in terms of certain areas, versus if you want to upstart an L&D function inside of a smaller business, you're going to need to be a bit more of a generalist in that regard. Or if you want to take on managerial type roles, you're going to need to know a bit about everything, but probably not be the best at anything in your particular function. So I think certain skills like media design, right? Maybe deep data expertise, deep technology expertise around things like machine learning. That requires specialization. But I think, like you said, the ability to get work done and find the right solution benefits from having a general awareness of a lot of different skills and capabilities versus being able to do one thing. And then if you think about employability, right, the ability to retain inside of an organization that may face budget cuts, the ability to do a lot of different things pretty well, and maybe some things very well, I think benefits you professionally.
Exactly.
All right, statement number 5. We're heading towards the end of our game.
Transitioning teachers have the skills they need to be successful in L&D. 3, 2, 1.
All right. We're disagreeing. This is a very timely conversation. A lot of people out there, hundreds of thousands of people right now are transitioning out of academic, grade school, high school teaching towards the learning and development space, given the commonalities in those types of roles. I disagreed with the statement that they have the skills to be successful in L&D right now, right out the gate. You agreed. What's your thoughts, John?
I think that's quite a good point you made out the gate. I think they have the base skills, but I think they need direction. When you think about, goodness, being a teacher is hard. I have been a teacher. And if you are trying to control 30 children whilst also, giving them knowledge and also stopping some of them eating PVA glue, that's an incredible skill set. But it's also, teachers understanding that there are more roles than just an instructional designer. That was a massive thing that we've seen over the past 2 years is, instructional designer became like a hot topic for people to go into. But when we really think about how many different roles there are, we've just been touching on a few of them, like copywriters, video, marketing, platform specialism. Is it that they actually start having a look at what are they passionate about? What have they got the chops for that they really fancy doing? And then, really getting those skills. And the wonderful thing is there's so many things that you can for free get those skills on. It's like content curation. You can curate, put it on a drip campaign or a MailChimp or on a Google site for free, and then send it out. And, it's displaying what you can do then. So it's, that's where I think where the agreement is. But JD, where's the disagreement?
The disagreement for me is primarily related to context, right? School is not like work is the fundamental piece. But I think I focus less on the skills piece of transitioning teachers and more on that fundamental passion element, right? Like you said, I don't want to generalize anybody by any means, but if you've been a classroom teacher for any period of time, you likely have a level of commitment and desire around helping people, around learning and education that probably is greater than a lot of what we see in corporate learning today. And I'll take passion over skill any day. I will take someone who's passionate about this type of work, but I need to teach how to articulate. That's simple. So I think focusing on, especially as an L&D profession, I urge the profession to look at it from that side and say, what can we really benefit from in people who are looking to come across to this side of learning, and really leverage that willingness, that desire, and then augment the skills that are likely missing, because the outcomes desired in a classroom versus the outcomes desired in a workplace are fundamentally different. And the context in which we enable them are different, even if learning is learning, right? It's a human process that's consistent. We can talk about andragogy and pedagogy all we want, but I hope the focus is on the passion people bring to the conversation, and that organizations are looking at, well, how can we enable and upskill people that want to make that transition so that we can benefit from it as a profession?
Yeah. Good stuff.
All right, one more statement. We're about to run out of time. So let's hear our final statement. One more chance to agree or disagree.
L&D knows how to measure L&D skills. 3, 2, 1.
All right, we both disagreed. I strongly, you just disagree. Final pitch. Why did you disagree with our ability to measure our own skills?
I think it comes back to our first point. There's so much inconsistency as to what are the roles, but also there's such a change in mindset going on right now. Like I said in the beginning, we're moving away from just output to how do we have a positive impact, but how is that actually reflected in skills? And also, how do we actually spread good skills? How do we actually look into, what's going on with the right skills for the right roles? What are the new roles that are coming up and what's needed by an L&D department. So I think it's ever changing, and it's really for us to understand what's needed by an organization to actually make something good. So, but why are you strongly disagreeing?
For the same reasons, I think that measurements are a fundamental challenge, right? So there's a huge conversation right now around enterprise skills kind of being that foundational unit of work, whether it be how projects are assigned, how promotions opportunities are created, how people are trained, how content's recommended, all of those things. And it makes sense, but the gap is how effective are we at defining and then measuring skills? And I think we as an industry struggle with that. And we often infer, well, because you're in a job, you can do certain things, or maybe because you took the training, you can. And consumption doesn't mean you can deliver. So I think it's our ability to master this in our own backyard, I think will go a long way to helping us figure out the skills conversation more broadly within our enterprises. And I think it all comes back to the fact that we struggle with measurement beyond what people completed and what test scores did they get at a certain time, really validating, is that knowledge transferring into skill and into outcomes in the workplace? How do we figure that on our own side, basically?
Yep. I'll agree with your disagreement.
It's such a polite debate we've had today. Thank you again, John, for playing our game with us today. Thanks for everyone who played along at home. One last question for you around this conversation of developing skills in L&D. Where would you suggest L&D pros go if they want to learn more about this topic or maybe find some new opportunities to develop the types of skills we've talked about?
I think one of the biggest things for me is coming over through to Jampan. We created a skill mapper. So this was something that I'm really passionate about, creating that alongside some great individuals. So Amanda Nolan, Laura Nels Hoffman, and the skills mapper is an assessment of what a future focused L&D team really would need to focus on. And rather than just being an assessment and telling you where you're missing, it actually provides you with resources to actually fill those gaps. So really, I think that is a really great, useful resource. And the best thing is it's free.
That is always the best thing, right?
It's always
Useful
the best
though
price.
is always better than free though. But so where can people connect with you if they want to learn more about your work, they want to connect to that particular resource, where should people head?
So for me, I pretty much live on LinkedIn. So come find me on LinkedIn. So John, Hinchliffe. Also, you can come find the resources and also myself over at Jampan. So jam-pan.com. And you'll be able to find a bunch of different resources, some free courses, but also the skills mapper to give you that helping hand.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John, for joining us today, for being our first guest, joining us from the UK. Thank you, everyone, for watching today's show. If you enjoyed your time with us today, be sure to check out our past episodes. You can find the entire In the Know collection on the Exonify YouTube channel, and you can also listen to the audio version of In the Know with Exonify on your favorite podcast app. And remember to join us in 2 weeks for our conversation with Jordan Eckers from Nudge. There's plenty of talk going on right now about employee experience, especially as companies struggle to recruit and retain talent, but few of these conversations focus on the frontline workforce. So that's the conversation we're going to have with Jordan as we shape the future of frontline enablement at Exonify. So be sure to sign up now and tune in on Wednesday, July 20th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, I've been JD. Now you're in the know. And always remember to ask yourself the important questions. Like, why does Goofy get to talk and wear pants and Pluto doesn't? I'll see you next time.